Hello and welcome to Right Sports Talk. My name is Zach. We are officially through the first month of the NFL season. Uh, it's been a very interesting first month of football, as September usually is, as some teams are still trying to figure out, what their identity is, still trying to figure out which teams are good, which teams aren't good. After a month, there's some teams I think could be good. Some teams we still don't know. We still got to kind of wait and see. Week 4 was a little bit of an interesting week. There were definitely some teams that I thought should have won that didn't. There was, a shootout on Monday Night Football. Started off a shootout between the Lions and the Seahawks. It's a fun game. A good team and the Bills got blown out. Stuff I will talk about a little bit later. So for my Week 4 predictions, I went 9-7, which is the best I've done in the past few weeks. Finally, I have a positive record after 2 back-to-back weeks of losing records with my picks. That brings me to an overall record this season of 34-30. This week there is going to only be 14 games as opposed to the 16 there has been. You have 4 teams on a bye week this week. This is the first week of bye weeks. Now let's get into these Week 5 games. First up, on Thursday Night Football, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 3-1, taking on the Atlanta Falcons, who are 2-2. The Buccaneers coming off of a victory over the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Atlanta Falcons coming off of a last-second field goal victory over the New Orleans Saints, which the Falcons' offense did not score a touchdown. They got a pick six returned for a touchdown. And then their kicking games really kept them in that game. So defense and special teams kicking game really kept them alive against the Saints. And they came very close to losing that game. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, offensively and defensively, even though the Eagles had some key offensive players out in A.J. Brown, their star wide receiver, still out. Devontae Smith, their number 2 wide receiver, out this week with a concussion. But they still looked very good against the Eagles. My pick for this game is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just think at this point in the season, the Buccaneers look like the more complete team as compared to the Falcons. I think offensively, Baker Mayfield looks really good. Mike Evans had a good game against the Eagles. Chris Godwin still looks good. Bucky Irving and Rachaad White are a good backfield tandem. And their defense looked really consistent throughout this season. The Falcons, I don't really know what we're going to get every week from the Falcons. Kirk Cousins looks more comfortable coming off his Achilles, but he doesn't look like he's all there yet. Kyle Pitts very inconsistent. They're a little inconsistent with their running backs, between Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, who's really takes control of the backfield on a given week. Their defenses looked good, but still don't know, consistency-wise what they're going to look like. So I am going to go with the Buccaneers here. Next up, we have a Sunday morning game. It is the first London game of the season between the New York Jets, who are 2-2, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who are 4-0. The Jets coming off of a very sloppy, ugly loss to the Denver Broncos, which neither team could really get anything going. The Broncos wound up scoring 1 touchdown in the game, and that wound up being the difference in a 10-9 ball game. The Minnesota Vikings coming off of a very good first half against the Green Bay Packers, in which they were up, I believe, 28-7 at one point or in the third quarter, and then the Vikings barely squeaking out a victory over Green Bay, getting the 31-29 victory right at the end. This game, not only is it an international game in London, it is a little bit of a revenge game for Sam Darnold on the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the New York Jets, the team that drafted him, I believe, 3rd overall back in 2018. I'm excited to see what Sam Darnold can do against his old team. This is also a familiar opponent for Aaron Rodgers, having spent so many years in the AFC North on the Green Bay Packers, playing the Vikings twice a year. My pick for this game is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. The Jets' offense did not look good against the Denver Broncos defense, and I don't think they're going to look much better against the Minnesota Vikings defense, who is playing very well under defensive coordinator Brian Flores. I think Sam Darnold is going to be able to do enough to get the win. His offense looked very good with Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison came back from an ankle injury and played very well against the Packers. So I do think the Vikings are going to be able to do enough to get the win here. Next up, you have the Carolina Panthers, who are 1-3, taking on the Chicago Bears, who are 2-2. The Panthers coming off of a loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bears coming off of a victory over the Los Angeles Rams. My pick for this game is going to be the Bears. I just think that they are the better football team right now. The Panthers are starting to figure it out under Andy Dalton, but I do think the Bears' defense is too good for the Panthers to be able to overcome and get the win here. I think the Bears, hopefully they can keep their run game going, and Caleb Williams can continue to improve here against Carolina. I do think the Bears get the win here. Next up, you have the Cleveland Browns, who are 1-3, taking on the Washington Commanders, who are in my opinion, surprising 3-1. Cleveland coming off of a loss to the Las Vegas Raiders, in which their offense, especially Deshaun Watson, very inconsistent. Deshaun Watson would look really good, and then look not so good. Their offense would start to do some things, and then have a penalty or drop pass, and it's just whenever stuff would start to go their way, momentum would immediately turn, and it would switch to the Raiders. The Browns just felt super inconsistent. The Commanders coming off a pretty big win to the Arizona Cardinals. Jaden Daniels looks really good. Brian Robinson looked really good in that game with over 100 yards rushing. My pick for this game is going to be the Commanders. I don't trust what the Cleveland Browns are as a team right now. I don't know which Deshaun Watson you're really going to get. I don't know how their offensive line is going to look. So I think the Commanders' offense, with their scrambling quarterback in Jaden Daniels and that run game, maybe if they can get Terry McLaurin going, the Commanders are going to find a way to get the win here. Next up, you have the Miami Dolphins, who are 1-3, taking on the New England Patriots, who are also 1-3. The Dolphins coming off of a pretty big loss to the Tennessee Titans on Monday Night Football. They just continue to have quarterback issues. Tyler Huntley got the start in this game, and he didn't look too spectacular. He looked slightly better than Skylar Thompson, better than Tim Boyle, but still have some question marks at quarterback. And you have the New England Patriots coming off of a loss to the 49ers, in which watching the game, it was much closer than the score indicates. It was a 30-13 victory for the Niners, but the Patriots defense actually played very well. It's just their offense, especially their offensive line, not able to hold up. Had some turnovers. The Patriots, their defense looks good. Their offense especially their offensive line, has a lot of concerns. The Dolphins, their defense looks okay, but honestly hasn't played all that well the past 2 games. And their offense without Tua looks directionless. They don't really seem like they have, they don't really seem like they have an offensive identity right now. For that reason, my pick is going to be the Patriots. I think this should still be a relatively close game, but I think that the defense is going to be the major difference in this game, and I think that New England's defense and their special teams are going to be able to do enough to squeak out the close victory against the Dolphins. Next up, you have the Baltimore Ravens, who are 2-2, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 1-3. The Ravens won 2 straight games, and this past Sunday night put just a whooping on the Buffalo Bills. I believe it was a 35-10 victory. Derrick Henry ran the ball very well. Justice Hill got involved in the run game and the receiving game out of the backfield and played really well. Lamar Jackson wasn't asked to do a whole lot because they were able to run the ball so efficiently. And you have the Cincinnati Bengals coming off of their first victory of the season over the Carolina Panthers, which Jamar Chase looked really good in that game. Joe Burrow, looks healthy, looks good. That offense is really clicking now. But I am going to pick the Baltimore Ravens in this game. I just think they're too dominant, especially in the run game, and they play good defense. So I do think the Ravens are going to get the win here. Although it is a AFC North divisional matchup, those are always, honestly, games that could go either way. These AFC North teams will love to beat up on each other, always make it close games. So it could be a close one, but I do think the Ravens get the victory here. Next up, you have the Buffalo Bills, who are 3-1, taking on the Houston Texans, who are also 3-1. This past week, I just mentioned the Buffalo Bills taking that whooping from the Baltimore Ravens. This comes 1 week after they beat up really badly on the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football. And you have the Houston Texans coming off of a very close victory to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which the Jaguars led for most of all the third quarter, and the Texans had to make a little comeback at the end. This is a game that I went back and forth on with who I thought could win it. Ultimately, I am going to go with the Houston Texans. I just like the Texans offense too much. This is a revenge game for Stephon Diggs, who got traded from Buffalo to Houston over the offseason. CJ Stroud looks good. Nico Collins looks like a really good number 1 wide receiver. They could be getting Joe Mixon back for this game, so that's a huge addition in the run game for them. So I do think that they do enough to get the victory, and I will take the Texans here. Next up, you have the Indianapolis Colts, who are 2-2, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 0-4. Jacksonville is the only winless team left in the NFL. You have the Colts coming off of a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, giving the Steelers their first loss of the season. Anthony Richardson got injured in that game, and he may or may not play in this game. He's dealing with a hip pointer injury. So Joe Flacco had to come in, and Flacco played very well for this Colts team. Their offense still looked really good under Joe Flacco. Their receivers look arguably better with Joe Flacco than they do with Anthony Richardson, because Joe Flacco has the ability to make short, intermediate, and deep throws, where Anthony Richardson's more of a deep ball passer. The defense still has some concerns. The Jacksonville Jaguars have not looked good. I don't know if I could trust them. I don't know what Trevor Lawrence and that offense is going to look like. I don't know what that defense is going to look like on a weekly basis. So for that reason, I am going to take the Indianapolis Colts here, especially if Joe Flacco plays. I think they're going to be able to play an efficient offense and get the victory here. Next up, you have the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 2-2, taking on the Denver Broncos, who are also 2-2. Both these teams are coming off of victories. The Raiders coming off a win over the Browns. The Broncos coming off of that very ugly win over the Jets. Both these teams have pretty good defenses, but question marks on offense. For this game, I am going to pick the Denver Broncos. I think their defense is better than the Raiders' defense. And although Bo Nix only threw for 60 yards this past game against the New York Jets, he did have his first passing touchdown of the season. So maybe he can keep that momentum going, and the Broncos find a way to get the win here. Next up, you have the Arizona Cardinals, who are 1-3, taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who are 2-2. The Niners coming off a victory over the New England Patriots, and the Arizona Cardinals coming off of a big loss to the Commanders. The 49ers are finally starting to get healthy. Christian McCaffrey is still out. We still don't know how long he's going to be out for. They did start to get Deebo Samuel back for this game. They got George Kittle back against the Patriots. So those are two big offensive weapons for them. Defensively, they're playing very good. Fred Warner looks like a top linebacker in the NFL, possibly the best linebacker in the NFL this season. The defense is very good. And the Cardinals, they look like they have a good offense. Still a lot of question marks on defense, especially after giving up, I want to say, 49 points to the Washington Commanders. So I am going to go with the 49ers in this game. Look, they're starting to get healthy. They're playing good defense. Their offense still playing well. I do think the Niners get the win here. Next up, you have the Green Bay Packers, who are 2-2, taking on the LA Rams, who are 1-3. The Packers coming off of their loss to the Minnesota Vikings, in which they almost completed the comeback in the second half, came up just short. If their kicker had been able to make some field goals, they would have won that game. And then you have the Rams coming off of a close loss to the Chicago Bears. The Rams still without Puka Nacua, still without Cooper Kupp, still have some offensive line injuries. The Green Bay Packers got Jordan Love back against Minnesota. He played well. He did have 3 interceptions, but he also had 4 touchdowns and close to 400 yards passing. So I think they can clean up the interceptions. The offense will play much better. I am going to pick the Green Bay Packers in this game. I think the Packers will be able to play good defense against this beat-up Rams offense. I think their offense is going to be able to play very well, especially 1 week removed from Jordan Love coming back, a little bit healthier from his MCL sprain. I do think the offense is really going to be clicking here, so I do think the Packers win this game. Next up, you have the New York Giants, who are 1-3, taking on the Seattle Seahawks, who are 3-1. The Seahawks suffered their first loss of the season on Monday night to the Detroit Lions. The New York Giants coming off of a close loss to the Dallas Cowboys on last Thursday night in Thursday Night Football. The Seahawks, their offense still looks very good. Geno Smith is playing well. DK Metcalf looks like a really good number 1 receiver. Jackson Smith and Jigba is playing very well in the slot. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet have been playing very well out of the backfield. For the Giants, Malik Nabers has been playing well, but he might not play in this game. He suffered, I believe it was a concussion late in the game against the Cowboys. Their number 2 receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson, has been playing very well. Their question marks kind of remain in the running game. Devin Singletary didn't have that great a game against the Cowboys. And outside of Malik Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson, what do they do in the receiving game? And kind of shaky on defense, but Seahawks are also kind of shaky on defense. But that could have just been the Lions being very good on offense. But I am going to pick the Seahawks in this game. I think that defense is going to be able to disrupt Daniel Jones, get some turnovers, get some pressure. If Malik Nabers does not play in this game, I think they're going to be able to do a good job of slowing down the receivers for the Giants. So I think the Seahawks get the win here. Now, your Sunday night football game. You've got the Dallas Cowboys, who are 2-2, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 3-1. The Cowboys coming off that Thursday night victory over the Giants. The Steelers coming off of their first loss of the season to the Indianapolis Colts, in which they got behind early, almost completed the comeback, but ultimately fell just short in a 27-24 ball game. I am going to take the Steelers in this game. I just, defensively and in the run game, I think they're going to be able to kind of wear down the Cowboys. The Cowboys offense, if you can take CeeDee Lamb kind of out of the game, their receiving options are slim. Have Jake Ferguson at tight end. Throw it to Jalen Tolbert or Brandon Cooks at receiver, but they have been very consistent. Jake Ferguson at tight end can only do so much from that position. The running game is virtually non-existent between Rico Dowdle and Zeke. Rico did have a good game against the Giants, but that maybe says more about the Giants' defense, more so than it does about Rico Dowdle. I think the Steelers' defense is significantly better than the Giants and be able to shut down the run game and could hopefully take CeeDee Lamb out of the game. And on offensively, the Steelers, their run game should be able to play well against this Cowboys defense, which has kind of been a little lackluster against the run. And Justin Fields has been playing very well both in passing and running as a quarterback. So I do think the Steelers get the win here. Next up, your final game of the week, Monday Night Football. You have the New Orleans Saints who are 2-2, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 4-0. The Saints coming off that very close loss to the Atlanta Falcons, and the Chiefs coming off a victory over the LA Chargers, in which they got down 10 points early. Rashee Rice injured his knee in that game. Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. He went to make the tackle. Him and Rashee Rice collided, and Rashee Rice had to get carted off the field, and he may have a torn ACL. My pick for this game is going to be the New Orleans Saints. It's a little bit of a risky pick. Saints coming off of 2 losses in a row, Chiefs being undefeated. But offensively, I don't know what Kansas City does. Outside of Rashee Rice, they do still have Xavier Worthy, who's a deep threat receiver. They still have Travis Kelce, who looked good in Rashee Rice's absence. But the Saints defense, I think, is good enough to kind of take out or minimize Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. And then I think their offense can play just good enough. As good as this Kansas City Chiefs defense is, they are, in my opinion, one of the top defenses in the league. But I think that the Saints offensively can do just enough to squeak out a victory here. So those are my picks for Week 5 of the NFL season. Let me know in the comments who you guys think are going to win this week. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, see ya.